question, if I may. What is the sport that the increase will be 19%? Which sport was that?
Wrestling, which currently runs a 3-year average loss of $7,800.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I think it makes sense. I mean, the two that I'm just going to go back to are it's girls hockey, boys hockey, right? So if we look at it, we're running a $34,191 deficit in athletics. If I carry that forward, and that was last meeting, I don't know if it's increased from there, but if I carry that forward using the new fees, we would be at, we'll call it 23,000 to 22.5. And boys and girls hockey would be 20,000 of a 22.5 deficit. If I look at boys hockey, it's if you were to take the expenses as the numerator, the denominator as the participants, I mean, you're looking at $873 per player. I would think that even at $873 per player, that's a good, darn good deal in hockey compared to youth programs and what they charge. And certainly that's unheard of if you were to look at many travel programs, and I would look to someone that knows a bit about the hockey pricing. But I would think that if there's anything, I think it all looks great. It's just hockey's concerning because that's a lot of money that's now going to one sport as opposed to academics.
It is. I think the fear was in those two sports having a large, going from right now they're at $450 each, and jumping up to like $625 in a 1-year span. I think next year you'll see us propose another increase through hockey, but doing it over time rather than one big sum of money. It is. It's a huge expense. And I can hear hockey parents probably saying, well, you don't even transport our kids to practice. So our kids, we pay this $450, and our kids have to find rides over to the rink to go to practice, because if we did that, the cost would be more exorbitant. So I totally agree with what you're saying, and I just think that we have to do it over time. But if the committee felt they wanted to increase that proposed $520 to say $600 or something like that, that's a year purview.
So what was the thought process behind not including the boys or girls lacrosse?
Because over the last 3-year average, they're staying above water. They're averaging around 2,200, 2,300 in their P&L. Now they do have the benefit of the gate, right? We can't collect the gate in every sport. When the outdoor track has a meet, there's no way to collect the gate really successfully. And then what do you gain from that? Maybe $1,000 or that kind of thing. It's not. But when you have a lacrosse game in the stadium, it's set up to collect. And then also, if they make it into the tournament, they've been largely successful programs, we get the first game, the home game, we get that game before it turns over to the MIA.
Do you want to move separately, or do you want to vote on this one? And then, excuse me, if I vote on this one and vote on the other fees.
We'll do them separately.
Motion to approve the athletic fees as recommended.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, we'll do roll call vote. Lisa?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Maura?
Yes.
Myself, aye. Motion carries. 5-0.
So the auxiliary fee list, the only adjustment that I'm proposing is making the accounting a little bit easier. So if you do a 10% fee increase, the parking fee would be $77, and so the half year would be, $33.50.
classes also have a, dues? So like, do you do, I'm assuming you do dues for each class for every year, so that's kind of how they get their, like, little money for all their events, correct?
Yeah, we don't do dues.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I knew they got money
Yeah,
somehow
they
for
do
classes.
fundraising. They do fundraising, so
Okay.
there's certain big events during the school year that are dedicated to different classes, like the seniors versus faculty basketball game is split between the senior and junior class. And the upcoming senior class of 2024, did an unfundraiser this spring where they said, would anybody like to donate 2024 to the class? And then they'll do different things, like we make sure that if one class is doing cookie dough, the other class doesn't sell cookie dough. So we kind of separate out the fundraisers, but we don't collect dues from the kids
Okay.
for the class. So the graduation fees goes to the rental of Symphony Hall, which has gone up dramatically since MGM took over. The cap and gowns, and the graduation placards and diplomas, the different, pins and things that the kids win at awards nights, those kinds of things. Anything associated with graduation.
So like this, like I know you guys do signs, I know that in the past I've done the adopting of the senior. Have you thought about rolling that into this cost?
So we've been doing the adoptive senior program since COVID started, and what that program does is it gets every kid a sign on their front yard. It gets them a bag of miniature stuff, like this year they got a Yeti, whatever you call it, water tumbler that says class of 2023 on it, the miniature ad. They got which I thought was pretty cool. My kid didn't seem very impressed by it, but it's a luggage, like air tag with miniature insignia on it, so you can put it on your luggage and you'll know where your luggage is at any point in time by seeing it with your phone. It's kind of like an air tag, but just specifically for your luggage. They got a universal charging adapter that will work with anything that's currently out now. And I think that was it. But we've done that as a way for the community, like many of the teachers in the district will adopt kids that they have in their classes. And it's less about giving them stuff and more about allowing members of the community to let someone know, hey, I sponsored you. And then in the bag, we give the seniors a thank you card, paperclip to the person who adopted them, and maybe if they said anything in their adoption paperwork.
Motion approved. Parking activities and graduation fee as proposed.
Second?
Discussion?
Yeah, I would like to, if it's okay, just to address the parking fee. I'm sure we all remember when we had a group of students come in and lay out a case for why they thought the parking fees were high comparatively, and their desire for us to keep those more under control. I would really recommend that we don't just have that be, okay, we listen to them once. I would say let's continue listening to them, and I would suggest that we leave the parking fees as they are.
Thank you, Sean. We will do roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Maura?
Yes.
Sean?
No.
And myself, yes. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're just going to quickly, say parking fees for that.
Excuse me, say again?
just, did you say that was, the motion was to approve the parking fees?
Parking activities and
Okay,
graduation
sorry.
fee. And then I know the next one is that booster club discussion. Can we just table that since it would be more appropriate for a future committee?
That's exactly what we're going to say. Thank you. And we are going to.
Excuse me, we were here to speak to that. I don't know if that matters on the booster club, but at the public portion.
So that would be appropriate for public comment, so it would be discussed as an
Right.
agenda item, but you're free to
Okay.
speak during public comment.
But there won't be a booster club presentation?
Not at this time, we don't have a representative from the Booster Club, so it's appropriate that they're here to be able to answer any questions or so we can have a conversation about that. But we are going to move out of order very quickly. We do have some guests. We do have Jenny Simmons and Karen Amerin. They are here from the Minotaur Regional High School class of 1973. They're alumni. They're here to present the donation of books to the district in honor of Dr. Janet Voss, NASA astronaut.
Janice Voss.
Janice Voss, I'm sorry.
Yes, well, there's one other member that wasn't able to come, Susan Ferrier-Lang. And so we're collecting donations for the cost of books that we're going to present to each library in the district. And we selected books that are grade appropriate, age appropriate books that we got off the list from the Children's Book Council and the National Science Teachers Association listings, and a few others that we kind of liked anyway that were off the list. And so that will be happening sometime in the fall after our reunion, and we're going to be putting a book plate, a memorial book plate in each book for Dr. James Voss. And what else? A informational plaque is also going to be given to the library so they can put it with the books to let the kids know who she was and that she came from Minnetonka and how brilliant she was. And we just, the class just felt we wanted to honor her in some way since we have a 50th reunion coming up. So, and so we just came to state that, and if you've got any questions for us, you know, we'd be happy to answer anything.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to accept the gift?
Make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll do roll call. Patrick?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
Lisa? Aye. Myself, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your reunion.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it.
I think there's a second one on there too, right? And school committee accepts a donation of $4,000 from the Hampton Lions Club.
Yes, I didn't see that, sorry. So is that on there?
It's on there, but it's not on the agenda, so
Okay.
just correct.
So we will continue to discuss the use of the capital stabilization funds for a railing project, and then we'll vote. John, can you speak to that?
Sure. And this may be a chance to just clarify the intent of the committee. I remember when we were meeting with the multi-boards discussing the railing for the high school and how much of a priority it was. And I believe that there were some verbalizations made at some of those meetings about, yes, it is a priority, we want to get it done. Whatever happens, we'll get it done. And my understanding was that the intention was to use capital stabilization if there was no other capital funding approved for that. Of course, at this time, there's no capital funding approved for anything. So I was in the process of instructing staff to move forward, and Aaron pointed out to me there never was an affirmative vote to use those funds. So that's why it's on the agenda tonight, just to clarify if that is a project that you'd like us to do this summer with the use of the capital stabilization funds.
Anyone make a motion?
I personally think that should get tabled for after the reorganization meeting, and that decision to be made by the future committee. And I only say that at this point because I thought we had made a decision on that, but I didn't know if we had to vote. I don't remember the correct minutes.
We had discussed it, and we had agreed to it, but I don't think we formally voted.
I would suspect part of the challenge is that it needs to get done over the summer. And I would first say, I don't think this is a great use of stabilization money. However, I think it may be our only avenue at this point in time. I would encourage, because it pertains to an action that was taken in this budget year, or this budget cycle with this committee, I would encourage us to vote on it tonight as this committee. But one.
Yeah, I'm really in favor of voting on it now. I don't think this is something that we want to push off. This is an issue, and it's something I believe we should address.
I make a motion to use capital stabilization fund for the railing project.
Second.
Sorry, can we just make one amendment to that, which would just be,
Just make a motion. Instead of making the comment.
as long, it basically please exhaust every other resource possible before using the stabilization funds. That would be it. I don't think we need to make the amendment to it, but thanks.
Okay. Discussion? Further discussion? Okay, we'll do roll call. Patrick?
Aye.
Sean? Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carries 5-0. I just wanted to close the loop and move on to the Williamson audit. Earlier this year, when we discussed the audit and the findings, there was a question regarding their recommendation and just making sure that we follow the procurement costs and making sure that we get the correct number of quotes. And so I believe it was in their audit they shared that we only had 2 proposals, but in fact we did receive 4 quotes. There were 4. One was MASC, then it was NESDEC, then Pearson and Jacobson, and Ryan Associates. There was one that was submitted after we'd already selected NESDEC to do our superintendent search. So I just wanted to clarify that and close the loop. Any questions?
Thank you for taking care of it.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the exit surveys.
Thank you. So I just wanted to provide the committee with an update on the data we've gathered through the procedures we've developed for exiting employees. As you probably know, we implemented an online survey for all separated employees, regardless of the cause of separation, that all staff are invited to participate in. We have also offered exit interviews for a few employees who've requested that. And there's always some lag in data entry, so I pulled this information as of this morning, but there may be some separations that haven't been fully processed yet. We had 50 FY24, I should say FY23 separations in the system as of today. More than half of those who separated were paraprofessionals, custodians, clerical staff, or food service workers. Teachers and nurses made up about 1/3 of the separations. Almost 80% of the separations were for personal reasons or unknown reasons. Folks are not required to tell us, but those 2 categories were by far the predominant category. We only had 1 employee who indicated that they were leaving to take another job in public education. And as I said, everyone in time of separation is offered the opportunity to participate in an online survey. 9 of the 50 have participated in that survey, so I wouldn't make any inferences based on such a small sample size, but I will say that personal reasons did also come up very high among those 9 who participated in that. And we conducted 2 exit interviews, which is an even smaller sample size, so I don't think is really appropriate to comment about that. But I just wanted to let you know how the system is working, what information we're collecting. You know, I was asked if there are any sort of takeaways. I guess the one thing that's sort of striking to me as I'm looking at this information is it seems that most of the separations seem to be coming from our lower paid units. And the other is that most of the separations seem to be for either personal reasons or reasons that staff are not disclosing.
Any questions?
Could you remind me what program you used to do the exit survey?
It's a Google form. So when employees get their separation letter, they're given a link to participate in the survey if they wish to.
Are the surveys anonymous?
They are.
Is there another program possibly that could be used that's free of charge for doing a survey?
I think you could use SurveyMonkey or any of the other ones that are online. Do you think there would be a different result or
Yeah.
a recommendation?
So where I teach, most teachers or staff are hesitant to give feedback on Google. They don't think it's anonymous.
Okay. Well, we can give it a try and see if we get any more participation.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
John, just so you know that prior to my arrival to the school committee 4 years ago, there was another committee member who had served for one year term, Rita Vale. And that was one of the things that she worked very hard on, making sure that there was a format and a way that teachers were communicated to participate in that. So I know that she will take pride knowing that that survey is coming back around, that it was something that we as a committee wanted to focus on. So again, I just want to make sure you understand that it's not just us as a committee, but some of the committee members are happy that that's happening.
Thank you. And I'll say that Aaron was the one who set up the whole system, so he deserves some credit for that too.
Thank you to both of us.
John, just out of curiosity, looking at the data, do we know at what point in time the departure occurs from years of service standpoint?
I actually have a list here. And I was trying to see if there was any trend in that earlier today. So I'll tell you what I came up with at that point. Approximately a third were in the first 3 years at the district. Approximately another third were in the first 5 years of the district, and that was only a third that was more than 5.
So 2/3, 500.
Yep.
Got it, thanks.
Can I ask a question? Just out of curiosity, I know earlier during the budget crisis, a number of pink slips were sent out, and most of those people, I'm sure, have been rehired already. Did we actually lose any staff, have any separations that resulted as people inacting and going and finding other jobs because they were uncertain of their security with the school district?
I don't think so. I'm not aware of any. Aaron is indicating he's not aware of any. I mean, we were in communication with the union throughout the process. I think folks realized there was a process happening, and as soon as we had a budget passed, we sent recall notices to everybody. I don't think anyone declined a recall notice.
Yeah, it was a relatively short window before we did have sort of agreement to the budget. We did give them a notice. I think once there was an agreement between the committees, we had that meeting at the police station. We did give them, I think, an intermediary notice of, we can't promise you, but we feel like there's some confidence here. And the principals were speaking with them throughout. So I think there was some confidence, very early on that I'm sure some of them were looking. It's a timing thing as well, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do we send exit interviews to people that retire?
Exit interviews with people that we retire.
Yeah.
They do get, I believe, the same exit survey, so they do have the opportunity to take the exit survey. And we have responded to people who did actually request, can I have an exit interview? It's just hard to try to do an exit interview of every single person who leaves. It'd be a lot to add to my job.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? We will move on to new business. So John will move on to participate in the classroom teacher rubric update pilot.
Sure, and the reason I'm bringing this before the committee is it is part of the collective bargaining agreement. But as you know, at the time of the equity audit, we received some feedback indicating that teachers would like more support from their administrators in developing and implementing culturally responsive lessons. The new rubric has been updated to emphasize and clarify exactly what's meant by culturally and linguistically sustaining practices, so using the rubric may be one way to be responsive to that teacher request. Districts choosing to participate in the pilot also received DESE-sponsored professional development for evaluators. I'm not sure when the last time our evaluators received professional development in teacher evaluation, so that is another benefit for this. Finally, I like to participate in pilots whenever possible because my experience is that the pilot usually becomes the actual thing. And those who are part of the pilot have an opportunity to shape it a little bit by giving feedback on what worked and what didn't work. The other thing that's good about being a pilot is we can do this however we want. We could do it with just volunteer teachers, we could do it with a group of teachers or a school. And I ran this by the union and by the administrators, and they are both interested in doing it if it's something that the committee would permit us to do.
Motion to approve participation in the classroom teacher rubric pilot.
Second.
Discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Is the union requiring any kind of MOA or anything?
They have not requested one at this point. I think because it is a voluntary process, you know, I think I keep landing on the place of we'll probably request volunteers and tell teachers you could use the rubric that's in the CBA now, or you could be one of the pioneers testing out this new one. And I believe there are teachers who would take us up on that based on the feedback they provided about wanting more specific feedback in this area.
We will vote. Roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, so it's now time for public comment. So we will call on those who have signed up for public comment. If you've not signed up, that's fine. You can just come forward. You can just use that microphone. Just make sure the green button is pressed. Please just state your name, the town that you're from, and how you're affiliated with the district. And you will have up to 2 minutes to speak.
A couple of us, I'll just read.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Amy Powers. I was the team manager for Minnetonka varsity hockey, or Minnetonka hockey. We've just had, I'll give you a little bit of background. We did some fundraising through Snap Race. It took us a really long time to get that approved. So by the time it was approved, the season was almost over. We raised $15,762. We received that money in February. Although we were never notified, we didn't know where it was for several months. We didn't find out through a lot of poking and prodding, which was unusual. We couldn't figure out where it was. And 2 months later, we find out where it was. That's the end of the season for us. And we had already paid for pretty much everything for this season, you know, kind of in hopes that fundraising, and we had sort of a verbal confirmation through that fundraising that we would be reimbursed. We've never seen any of that money, and we've been trying to get answers, and I guess we just don't understand the process of how the boosters work and how our money, when we raise the money, where it goes and how we access it, especially for the things that we did for these kids. So we're just really here because we're concerned, and we've tried to do it all the kind of right way and get the right answers, and nobody seems to give us any answers, and we can't even access the people that are in charge of the money. So that's our concern. I don't know if somebody else has something else.
Hi, my name is Mary Parker Complanian. I'm the mom of Matt Complanian, who's also on the hockey team. He just graduated as he was a senior. With regard to what Amy just said, it's our understanding that all of the money is with the Booster Club, but for I think a 10% commission that Snap Race took. So it's a little over $14,000 that was raised by the hockey team. So this was done through hockey players reaching out. They all had to provide 20 email addresses, and so it was friends and family and hockey players that donated this rather significant sum of money. And what happened, unfortunately, with the timing is that parents were asked to lay out for covering up the costs of certain things that the team needed. So specifically, I think we're talking about things like the posters that we used for the boys for senior night, all of the miscellaneous things that go along with senior night, flowers for the moms, making of the senior night flyers. And in my case in particular, we had the hockey banquet up at Wilbraham Country Club. And because we raised such a significant amount of money, it was such that we were under the belief that we did not have to charge the players individually for the hockey banquet, that was something that was covered by our fundraiser. It was JV and varsity that was at the hockey banquet. But because we didn't have access to the funds, I ended up paying for the entire hockey banquet because I'm a member of the club, and that was the only way we could accommodate getting it paid for. It was $2,575. So that's the sum of money that I unfortunately am out of pocket on, and I'm very concerned that I don't know the path to get reimbursed. It seemed like it should be a fairly smooth process, but we're hoping we can try to get some answers. I did contact Steve, the AD. He had sent me a copy of bylaws. I read the bylaws. I didn't see anything in the Booster Club bylaws that would preclude reimbursement to parents. So I just wanted to make sure that our concerns are noted because they are significant, and we're hoping we can figure out what the numbers are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
very much.
Did you want to speak?
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add, I came in a little bit earlier, so I heard the concerns about the fees for hockey, and I think it was proposed $800 over perhaps the next couple of seasons to increase the fees for families. And so it's kind of ironic that we raised all this money and we specifically reached out to family and friends saying this is for hockey, and it's kind of false advertising and hurting the future prospects of fundraising for the sports here at the school, because parents aren't going to want to reach out to other family and friends if there's going to be a problem if the money's not coming back to the specific sport that people requested it for. And again, with the concerns, I think you said maybe $800 for hockey fees. I mean, this is money that, you know, could help close that deficit with the sports rather than putting all that money on the families. So I just wanted to add that it's kind of ironic that we're discussing this, the money's being held up, and there's a concern about the cost of hockey. So, thank you.
Lynn Breland, reporting on Blacksmith. I think to add to, also we owe small businesses money since January. I think that's really bad practice for some apparel. We've had those invoices. Again, this is going to affect future, you know, all my boys are out of school, right? This is going to affect the future. My son played hockey and lacrosse. Fundraising started with lacrosse and nobody wanted to give. So this affected this current lacrosse season because they were made aware. We're asking the same people to now give to another sport who have heard that we never got the hockey money. So that's my concern. We owe small businesses money, and it's going to affect future giving to these teams. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last thing before But I think the biggest thing for me is that I volunteered for this position. I had 2 boys in the program, and I did it just out of the goodness of my heart. I ended up putting all of this like on my credit cards and my, you know, so now I'm getting finance fees, and we're talking upwards like of $5,000. Like this isn't just $500. And I did it in good faith. I saw the money, I saw snap rates just increasing. I knew we were past $7,000. I said, all right, I'll fund this. And the worst part of it is there's no answer. Like when I try to reach out, when I talk to, you know, some of the head people, it's like nobody knows how to get an answer. And nobody knew where the money was. Why is that? You know, those are our questions. And why are we still, like, and again, my boys are out of the program now. So I have a daughter that's in hockey, and if those fees go up, I don't understand why, you know, we're raising money for these programs. What, are they being dispersed? Are they being hidden? We don't know. But this is what we had to resort to. I mean, I'm getting out of work so that we can get some answers from some other people. So, you know, we really just need answers. And we need the money reimbursed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There will be a future agenda item with the booster fund, so.
Could I just ask if the booster representatives will be at the next meeting so that we would be able to participate then?
when we coordinate, we will have representatives from the booster club.
Okay, do you know when the next meeting is? I know it on the agenda, it says TBD.
We haven't coordinated with them, and we haven't coordinated. We have a reorganization meeting in July,
Okay, thank you.
but we'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to subcommittee updates. It should go rather quickly. Cheryl's not here for the curriculum subcommittee. So I'll give a quick update on the planning subcommittee. So we had Christine Lynch from the from DESE regarding the process and timeline for amending the regional agreement. We did learn that the approval deadline, so if there is a need to add a grade or a member town to the regional agreement, the agreement and its language must be approved by December to allow a start date for July 1st. So we have time, we're not bound by that, because we're not adding a grade or a town to our regional agreement. They will provide a checklist for the regional agreement, so they're going to share a checklist that includes both the legally required components that should be in the agreement, as well as some helpful tips for amending the original agreement. So some of the legally required components may include information about how the regional school committee members are selected, Chapter 70 requirements, and things about the minimum local contribution. So there was a caution on amending the assessment methodology. So this was just important to have clearly worded language for the Springtown meeting to determine which assessment methodology is being used, because if the methodology fails, the entire budget will fail. We had a discussion between the planning committee about a 2-phase revision option. So this would be the possibility of revising the regional agreement in 2 phases. So the fall phase that was proposed would focus on the budget and assessment methodology, and then the spring phase would address the reconfiguration. It's also necessary to ensure that all laws and regulations are met before the amended agreement is approved. So one of the challenges will be reaching agreement among the school committee, planning committee, towns regarding the provisions and language of the amended agreement. And we did discuss adding increased opportunities for conversation. So to facilitate discussion, there are plans to provide increased opportunities for conversation with the superintendent and planning committee. So these conversations may take place in person, in Zoom meetings at various times throughout the summer. So these would be at locations like Rice's and Mountain View on various times of the day. So we have morning options, afternoon options, as well as evening options, which would be the Zoom opportunities. The superintendent will be sending out a survey to educate district families of the issues that we're trying to rectify, the limitations of the current agreement between the towns, and also be gathering feedback on what options the public would most likely support. We do not have a date for our next meeting at this point. Any questions?
Did you guys look into the requirement for the DESE to approve the assessment methodology?
I guess as I was listening to that summary, the one thing I was going to add is that another party of the agreement is not just the school committee and the towns, but also the department. So they have shared with us at that last meeting that they'll be happy to work through drafts with us. They'll be happy to give us feedback on language as well as suggested language. But they have to give us their blessing as well.
We found out that once we have worked through all of those revisions, the timeline for the commissioner to sign off on it is minimum. It could take just a few days for him to sign off on once.
So I'll tell you that Tilton has been trying to do it for 3 years. So just keep that in mind. There are other communities out there that have been trying. I mean, you can reach out to the groups on Facebook that are that support the regional school districts, and they will tell you that they've been going. Some of it is trying to understand what the assessment is, but the Department of Education doesn't always readily accept your first proposal. It's my understanding. I could be wrong. So you're going to be crunching if you're going to try to get all that done.
Anything else? We'll move on to Bill's not here for finance and operations. I don't believe they've met.
There's been no finance meeting.
Okay. LPBAC Corporation, nothing to report. LPBAC Collaborative.
We met and went over budget and approved budget items. And then we came up with new positions. I can't think of the name. We reorganized, thank you.
So is there gonna be an increase to what we pay LPC?
No,
Okay, so if something like that comes up, make sure that you circle back, not that you wouldn't tell the committee, but you want the finance folks know, so we can account for that in the budget for next year, the following.
Nothing to report for negotiation subcommittee, policy subcommittee, one.
Nothing to report.
Moving on to consent agenda.
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
Lisa? Aye. Myself, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Hi, Sharon.
I'm on.
What did you?
I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Yes.
I'm on remote.
How are you?
Hi.
Okay, great. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. So we'll move on to the superintendent's update.
Thank you. As I've reported at previous meetings, we're beginning to prepare to do some in-depth work to build out our MTSS system during years 2 and 3 of our strategic plan implementation. Not only had this been identified as a priority through the strategic plan, it also came up in the equity audit as the third general recommendation for the district. Mass Insta recommended that we start by conducting a self-assessment and suggested using the DESI MTSS self-assessment. In our planning, that is the district administrator's planning, we also found that we needed to begin with a self-assessment, so this work was underway even before we received that recommendation. However, we had chosen a different self-assessment tool. After evaluating several, we chose to use the MTSS Fidelity Implementation Rubric from the Center on Multi-Tiered Systems of Support at the American Institutes for Research. While both instruments provide insights into many of the same elements, the DESI tool is more conceptual and attempts to examine whether conditions needed for successful MTSS implementation are present, whereas the AIR tool is more practice-based and looks at whether or not specific MTSS activities and strategies are actually in place. The 5 sections of the AIR rubric are universal screening, progress monitoring, data decision-making, multi-level prevention systems, and school infrastructure and support systems. Teams of educators assessed their own schools on each of these 5 dimensions and reported the results as part of a day-long Climate Institute that took place last Wednesday. There are some common themes in the results. The first is that every school is on a journey to MTSS. Our elementary schools in general are farther along on the journey. That's not surprising because a lot of the initial research and model building around MTSS had to do with young learners. And that makes sense because the best opportunity to intervene comes when the developmental window is open the widest, and that typically is when students are youngest. However, it's still possible to accelerate the developmental trajectory of older learners, and we're learning more about what MTSS can look like at the secondary level. Another common theme was that the school year just ended was all about getting Tier 1 in place. And that also makes sense, especially since all of the conversations we've had about our new systems. But every version of MTSS that I'm familiar with says your core academic program and your core behavior management system needs to be strong enough to meet the needs of about 80% of your students. If a strong majority of students can't get what they need in terms of both academic and behavioral success from the general education program, it's probably not a good enough program. And the numbers of students failing to respond are going to overwhelm your secondary and tertiary support systems. And by the end of the year, we were starting to see some examples of screening assessment data showing that 80% of students were on track for either math or ELA. That's a good start, but there's still the other 20%. And that includes both students who are ready for greater challenge as well as students who need help to catch up or to regulate their own behavior and emotions. The final overall theme that came through is that while the 5 sections of the AR rubric are not arranged hierarchically, we tend to have more components of Section 1 in place than any other section. We have screening tools, we have screening procedures, we can identify with a reasonable margin of error who's at risk for learning or behavioral problems, and those are all in section 1 of the rubric, and those are clearly present in the elementary schools. What we're missing in many places right now is a way to intervene with the students we've identified, a way of monitoring their progress during intervention, and a way of determining whether or not the students are responding to intervention. And all of that will require communication, professional development, and resources, which is why getting MTSS embedded will be a multi-year process. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. So future agenda items, we have what do we value, what will education look like in 5 years, transportation, booster club. We have tentative date, we had discussed at the last meeting, either meeting on Thursday, July 20th, or Thursday, July 26th. Mike, are you able to make, but if you had agreed, Bill said he's available either, I think it was just because Rich, and we can send that via email, but I figured Mike was on, so Mike would be on Zoom on the 20th. Mike, do you think that's possible, or would you like us to figure out a different date and just do it on the 26th?
So you're talking about a school committee meeting on the 20th?
Yes.
I would be remote on Zoom. Very likely, yes, I'll be able to join in the capacity like I am now.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. I
The
appreciate
27th, I would be able to be there in person.
Okay, so we will have, because we discussed these dates publicly last time, and so we will have our meeting on Thursday, July 20th at 6:30 in the IRC. Okay, so I'd like to again thank Maura and Patrick.
Sorry, the Hampton Lions Club vote for future agenda.
For the future agenda.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you again, Maura and Patrick, for your service. Enjoy your summer. We have a motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute. So
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, Maura was going to say something. Sorry, Sean. If there was just one thing that I can ask for next year, and I say this because students had reached out about this booster club issue, as did now we have had parents come. Can we, when you have that meeting with the booster club, can we be prepared to, from the administrative side? I realize that that's not always you, Aaron, that could be like the other Steve, that's the AD, but have an understanding of what the internal processes are, not only just for where the financial or how the money moves around, or it gets into the building, like it could just be mail that goes to the AD, and then the AD sends it to the boosters. With Steve not being here, I'm just asking that maybe you include them, the two Steves. But what is the approval process for athletics to utilize another fundraiser that's not the boosters? Because I know we do have really good policies that were set in place prior to even me getting onto the school committee about how they wanted that relationship with the Booster Club, so that we can try to avoid any other issues for next year. Because the last thing I'd hate to see is the attendance for athletics not be where they should be because people are concerned about that one aspect. Thank you. And again, it's been a pleasure working with you both. I wish you all the luck, and hopefully I'll see you on the other side of the table next year.
Likewise.
Second.
And roll call vote.
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Cheryl? Lisa? Aye. Maura?
Aye.
Myself? Aye. We're adjourned at 5:55.
Might I note there are
And Nicholas is at bat right now.
people to sign the warrants, so please sign them before you go.
You did?
Well, now you have to sign the warrant.
It depends on when my warrants get signed.
There's only one and it'll be these ones we do.
You've got 5 minutes to sign the warrants, though. And make sure everybody else does.
There's only one and